Hello and welcome to the Financial Wellness Hour. I am your host, Hirsch Serman, and I'm happy to have you join us on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. This show is for those wanting to learn more about creating financial wellness, and we're going to look at different life cycles. We're going to explore them both emotionally and financially, because personal finances are usually not about the money, but rather about the emotions associated with your money. And the healthier you are emotionally, the better decisions we tend to make. We might be somewhat general in our discussion, but we'd love to hear from you. So you can reach me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. Or you can post questions, comments on Facebook, YouTube, or anywhere else that you might be listening to the show. I've said this pretty often on the show that going through a divorce can be both the largest challenge and the largest opportunity all at the same time. I've also found through my own experience, as well as with my clients, that many getting back into the dating scene or even creating a social life can be a daunting experience of itself. Our guest today is Laurie Gerber. Laurie has appeared on the Today Show, Dr. Phil, MTV, A&E. Laurie, you're going to have to forgive me. I'm sure I'm not going to get them all, but also is a resident love expert on Match, Zeus, JDate. She writes for AARP, 60 and Me, has her own blog, has coached thousands of individuals and couples. We're lucky to have her join us here today on the show to help us get ready for the holiday season. It's not always so easy to go it alone, but we've got Laurie to help us. Laurie, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Very timely topic. It's what everyone's talking about.
It's definitely what everyone's talking about. Yes. And I'm going to ask, just before we kind of dive into the show, if you can give a little bit about your background so people understand where you're coming from, what your passion is all about.
Where I'm coming from is I've always been really bossy and think I know better than everyone else. And so I trained myself to be a coach. That's my background. No, I started coaching across all areas of life back in the early 2000s. I've been doing it for many, many, many years. And in the last 4 years, as I have entered midlife, I have started to focus on midlife, sort of the pressures, the issues of midlife. And namely, I really, really enjoy coaching people on dating after divorce, because that's what I'm finding amongst my cohorts in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s is they are moving on from an old relationship, and there's this whole new possibility for a new relationship based on totally new criteria and goals in those relationships. And I love that transition. So I started as a general life coach using a methodology that was created at MIT and Stanford, very rigorous, full, kind of method. And I've moved into more recently just focusing on love and dating because it's the most fun, in my opinion.
I'm actually, that you say that it's you don't always kind of realize things as you hear them, but I think it was Thursday of last week, if I remember correctly, I was speaking with somebody 57 years old. She says to me, basically, this relationship is really over. There's nothing that either one of us is getting out of it. I still have the opportunity to get into a relationship that can be rewarding and fulfilling. And I'm thinking 57, it's beautiful to be thinking that. So exactly what you're saying, right? It's great that people have the attitude, I'm not too old, I can still do this. I like that.
No. I'm actually having a guest on my podcast in the next season next year who is an 80, I think she might be 83, and she specializes in the sex life of people in midlife and beyond, right into senior ages. And I'm just so excited because she's such a good example of, and if my YouTube hits, teach me anything, people are really still interested, love, romance, and sex into their 80s and 90s even. Not everybody, but some people.
Right.
So they're really, that's why my podcast is Love at Any Age, because there is no age limit. And we're in this interesting time in history where divorces happened with people who got together in a very different culture than we currently have now, with very different reasons for marrying. And now it really is it's a whole new ball game with entirely different mindset, necessity, skill set, strategy, tactics, and all of that. So it just feels like a very ripe, ripe moment.
I did have a client once who was 86 say to me, "What do you want me to do with my time? Date?" So, it
Yeah,
is on people's minds, there's no
it
question. And
is. It
I
is.
find also that talking about divorce, it doesn't really matter if you were divorced January 1 or December 1. The holidays can be a difficult time for many.
Totally.
And I'm going to
Totally.
ask you, why is this time of the year so hard for people?
Well, I mean, especially if you have children. And so either those kids are going to your ex and you are having this experience of being alone, a new experience of being alone, or maybe you're having your kids, but the ex isn't there. So your kids are having that dissonance of like, oh, this is so different now. And that's if your kids are 4 years old, all the way to if your kids are 54 years old, right? Like it causes dissonance now that the family structure is so different. Not to mention, I mean, I really try to avoid ads, but I am inundated with ads of families in matching pajamas. How about you?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, it is just like
absolutely.
all laughter and cheer and togetherness. The cultural messaging is so strong that you should be hugging your loved ones and be surrounded by family and be just and probably have a partner if you're really looking at the cultural messaging and what's in our faces, both in our social media and our wider media. So there's this all of these triggers to feeling like you're not in the right place with the right people. And I think that's very hard.
Yeah, the only way they saying to be happy is, have a spouse, 2.5 kids, and a dog, right? Which,
Exactly. And
is
matching
not the case.
pajamas, preferably.
Yeah, no, and
Yes.
matching
Yes.
pajamas, correct, right. And
Yes.
I'll tell you from my experience, year 2 was much harder for me because the first year that I got divorced in the summer, and that first year I had my kids for part of it, and then the rest of the holiday season I was actually with family. And it was the next year where I had a lot of alone time, and that's where it really hit me, being alone for the first time. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that first year. You've just got to plan again, and that's a little bit of what we're going to do now. But having
Right.
people think forward and plan, I think, is so important as well. And I guess whether you're coming out of a long-term marriage or a short-term relationship, it doesn't really matter. It's still difficult to be alone. So I know it's easy for people who've been through it, or have done the work. Sometimes people are struggling. What's the right mindset about being alone through the holidays? Let's talk a little bit about that and how do people change their mindset?
I mean, here's what I would say to a dear one who told me that they were lonely. I would first say, that makes sense. I understand that. That is a real feeling. I mean, it's like I lost my father this year, right? So if I'm feeling sad, that's really valid, right? If I'm missing him, that's really valid. And this is the same thing. You're grieving the loss of something. And we all know if we've lost somebody we love, grieving takes many shapes and sizes. It comes at unexpected times. So a good mindset would be follow your feelings, like allow your feelings, let them arise. It's normal because you are grieving the loss of something, even if it was the idea of something or the general togetherness, or maybe you lost a partner that you really loved and wanted to stay with. So either way, your feelings are valid, and feelings are not facts, right? So if you change your mind about where you are now, you might start to then feel better. So I really encourage my clients to reflect upon their divorce as a learning experience, as something that is probably what's best for everybody involved ultimately, and to do what I would consider the personal growth work to be able to tell that story to first to yourself and then to others as an important chapter in my life, a chapter that was useful and valuable to me, in which I learned something and I grew. That's where we want to get to, so that the loneliness feels less personally hurtful or like some sort of um, message to us about our worth. No, we all make mistakes. We all have relationships that end. And if we can then learn from that, we get better and smarter about relationships. If we can't, if we stay wallowing in the self-pity, the fear, the anger, the regret, then no amount of good parties will make us feel better on the holidays.
Yeah, there's so much resonated with me. I actually know a divorce coach who says, when a marriage is done, they say it's not that it failed, it's that we got all we could out of that relationship. It's time to move on.
Right.
When I was going through a divorce, one of the best pieces of information or advice I was given was, they said a 15-second rule. I was like squashing down the feelings because I didn't want to dwell.
Right.
And I think sometimes people can spiral. It's easy to kind of wallow, as you said, a poor me kind of thing. I think, though, the advice that he was saying with the 15-second rule was validate the feelings. They're real feelings. But then don't dwell on them. Kind of give that reverence, give that loss the appropriate thought,
Exactly.
and then move on. And
Yes.
by doing that, your mindset, I found, changed quite a bit. Instead of that poor me, it's this has happened, but there's more to life. I can move forward. I can grow. I can reconnect with myself. I can reconnect with friends. I can discover who I am. You lose yourself after 20 years. I think there's just so many things to that.
Exactly.
I'm going to ask, here's in line with what we're talking about, but sometimes, and this is hard because you usually probably customize your advice and information, but can you share some advice on how to feel better about your situation, how to pull it out of the wallowing and say, here's the reality, let's think about it a little bit differently?
I mean, there's one really easy method, which is stop focusing on yourself. Right? Like that's a really,
Right.
I would say you want to be around people. If you're lonely, you want to be around people. So plan to be around people on the holidays. Go to a friend, go to a family member. And if not, do something of service to the community. Go serve dinners in a homeless shelter. Go where you are needed so you can remember that you are valuable exactly as you are, and you are of service to this world and important in this world to whom you're important to, and to anyone you seek to serve or help. You do have to get the attention off yourself. And there are other really great hacks like exercise and meditation, right? Just basic self-care, basic self-love. If you are wallowing or feeling lonely and you're not doing the basics to take care of yourself, like giving yourself the love that you maybe feel like isn't sufficient in your life, then first of all, you're not going to feel very good because you don't get the endorphins. And second of all, you're not going to know the feeling, right? You want to know the feeling of being cared for and loved so that you can then attract it either from family members, friends, or a new lover, a new partner. And so those are some very basics to beginning to feel better.
Yeah,
Now,
I think
some people already have plans to see their partner, to see their family, and they're actually just dreading, but they feel lonely in that, right? They're dreading. You do have plans, but you just don't like them. That's another story.
Yeah, and I think it's so easy to isolate. I mean, that's one of the big fears, as a professional, that my clients are going to do. And when you isolate, you with yourself, and all you're going to be thinking about is yourself, right? So the things like, well, I'm the only one alone, or all my friends have it better than me, or whatever your feelings are. I think
Right.
it's easy to distort the reality of what your situation
Exactly.
is. Yes, you're not maybe where you want to be, but as you said, if you go to a food kitchen and you help people and you look at the people there, and you can at least say, you know what, I have my health, I have food over my head, I have a job, I have whatever else you have, you can really start to put your situation in a very different framework as to what's really going on in your life. It's a challenging time. I'm never going to say it's not. I'm never going to minimize the challenge of going through a divorce. But there are people that still have it worse than you do. But it's not always easy to see that unless you get out there. And I think the default or the easiest thing is just to be by yourself, because you're not sure how are people going to feel, how they're going to interact. Are you going to feel a little weird, maybe being the only single person? And I like what you said is kind of go out, be there, do stuff. Even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes, just to get out, just to, get some fresh air. But it'll be 5 or 10 minutes this time and half an hour next time, and, the whole event the following time. I think those are small wins sometimes, but very,
Baby
very
steps.
important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So,
you use the word distort, and I think that's a really good word for what happens when we're alone or in the dark or at night, is our brains start to really make up a lot of nonsense that's not true and
right.
not helpful.
Right. And especially, when you're up at 2 in the morning and you can't reach out to anyone, right? Because everyone else is sleeping. And then your mind really goes haywire because you're tired, you're hungry, you're obviously in your mind. I always used to tell clients that when you get in your mind, you're behind enemy territory, right?
Right, right, behind enemy lines. Yes.
Yeah, it's not a good
Yeah.
place to be.
It's
You need
dangerous.
that
It's a
kind of,
bad neighborhood. Yeah.
yeah. And that's where
Yeah.
some of the things that you said earlier, being able to, whether it's meditate with self-care, the big one, I know people still use them. I know when I was going through my divorce, I'd never even heard of a gratitude list, quite honestly. All of a sudden, this became something I did every single day because in the beginning, I wasn't so grateful for what was
Right.
going on.
Right.
And
Right.
understandably, I think, quite honestly, that, you think, why is this happening to me, right? And you get this victim mentality, but it really doesn't have to be. And I, quite honestly, I find so many people who have gone through a divorce that are getting into the divorce world, helping others, are sometimes really amazing practitioners, because your journey is never the same. Even if you've kind of been close to a divorce and figured it out, the journeys are never the same. But at least there's an understanding that what you're going through and the fog and the confusion can sometimes be very, very helpful for people as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
You need your team around you, whether it's
yeah.
friends, families, coaches, support groups, people who understand what you're going through. And again,
And
I'm
I
not
was,
going through a divorce, but I have I've recently grieved a death, and I find the parallels really, really similar in the sense that
there
nobody can
really is.
understand, but we can relate.
Yeah. We lost, when I went through my divorce, right before that, we actually lost my dad. And I saw during those two periods such
Yeah.
parallels in
Yeah.
loss and grieving.
Yeah.
For sure, there was
Yeah.
no, and just talking about teams, just a kind of a sidebar. I think it's very, very important. I always tell people there's two teams. There's your professional team, and quite honestly, there are resources today that even 10 years ago there weren't. I mean, Laurie is
Right.
a perfect example of kind of regrouping and refocusing where your life can go. Having someone like Laurie is going to be incredibly beneficial. You might not have been the person managing finances in your relationship. Someone like myself, a CDFA, CPA coach, is going to be able to help you bring structure in. How do I redevelop my financial life? How do I take control of that? That's one team. The other team, and maybe even sometimes more important because you might need them for longer, is your emotional support team. And that can be a professional therapist, someone like that, divorce coach. But I always tell people, if you're going to rely on friends, it's not just any friend or anyone who's been through a divorce, because they can relate. I find sometimes people going through a divorce, they still bitter, or they still have a little bit of a chip
Right.
on their shoulder. You just
Right.
want positive people in your life at that
Right.
point.
They can make it worse. Yes.
So yeah, they can bring you down, those other people. So
Yeah.
be
Pick your
selective.
team. Pick your
Yeah,
team carefully. So true. So
exactly.
true.
So before we go to a break, I'm going to ask you just how can people get in touch with you, and what can they do if they go to your website or wherever it is. So
Beautiful. I mean, the website is great. It's the clearinghouse for everything, lauriegerber.com. There you can send me an email if you need to ask me something about private coaching. You can find the free webinar, 3 Secrets to Finding and Maintaining Healthy Love, which is like a real, if you're ready to even consider dating, if you're not ready to consider dating, just chillax and know it's there, and hopefully it'll still be free when you are ready. But that's a 1-hour training on how to find healthy, lasting love. And you will also see my podcast, which just launched. I really want people to watch it on YouTube, but it's also on my website. And that's Love at Any Age. Thanks for putting all those things right below. Love at Any Age. It's on all the podcast platforms and on YouTube. And if you like visual, watch me on YouTube there. I'm just giving away everything I have learned in 20 years of coaching people on healthy love. And so even if you're not ready to date, you might feel better You might feel better watching it. It might help get you ready. So those are my thoughts.
I would encourage everyone to go to lauriegerber.com, read blogs, interact, whatever it might be that works for you. I think it's important, and we will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hello, and welcome back to WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. This is the Financial Wellness Hour. I'm your host, Hirsch Serman, and I'm glad that you're joining us for the second half of the show. Our guest today is Laurie Gerber. You can reach her at lauriegerber.com. We're talking about how to go through the holidays alone, and it doesn't always have to be alone, so I think that's encouraging in itself. I'm going to recap a couple things, as I always do, because we covered an enormous amount in that first half hour. And if this is especially your first year going through the season alone, I think it's worth sharing some of them. So firstly, you shared your background of 20 plus years of coaching and how it's meandered a little bit, but obviously being able to help people through difficult situations. We did talk about why it's a difficult time of the year, having the right mindset. We spoke a little bit about having the right validation of feelings, not spiraling and devolving into the emotions, but being able to give it the correct amount of attention, but moving on and understanding the other things, taking the attention off yourself, not isolating, giving of yourself, knowing that there's so much value still within you. Sometimes we wrap our identity into our marriage and everything else, and we lose that we actually have other pieces to ourselves that are so valuable as well. You gave advice about feeling better about your situation. And I think that's probably only 50% of what we covered. I do not remember everything, but
That was great. It was a great recap.
Writing down furiously as we were speaking. You know, one of the things, a lot of people, especially, we talk about this gray divorce, you know, so to speak, the older generations getting divorced 50 plus. Many people haven't dated in decades, and dating has changed drastically. You know, it used to be, I would come to your door, I would pick you up. Now, if I showed up at your door for that first date, it is like a stalker alert.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the exact opposite. So what can someone do to raise their dating aptitude if they wish to be partnered, or at least just to touch, you know, dip their toe in the water, so to speak?
Right. It's fun. I actually take dating in 3 stages. One is the readiness, where you're actually just getting ready to even engage it, which is probably where most of your listeners are now. But then the next stage is the early hunting, right? The early creating a profile, getting online, seeing what happens. And that's the part that's changed so drastically from when we were when we were younger. And then there's the early relationship where you're learning how to communicate honestly at a whole new level than you ever did before, so that this time you pick differently based on what you've learned, right? So there's really 3 stages that I treat, that I work with. And that first stage of readiness has a lot to do with making sure you really are resolved about your divorce, which is where a divorce coach and a coach or a dating coach or a therapist comes in really handy. Because if you are still preoccupied, you're not really available. So that's number one. Number
I
two,
love, by the way, I love that you're saying that, because I find so many people jump into a relationship a month later or whatever, and they're not even sure who they are at that point, in my opinion.
Well, I liken that to if you've never played a sport and then the coach just sends you in. It goes like, okay, you're the linebacker. Okay, you're the shortstop. Okay, you're the striker, or what? And you're just like, you're just gonna try not to get killed, right? You're not gonna. You have no skill. You have no strategy. You have no. It's dangerous, and a lot of people come to me quite bedraggled because they have launched right back in because they're lonely. And they've had
Yeah.
terrible experiences on dating sites and terrible experiences with being catfished and ghosted and taken advantage. Like it truly is a disaster. I am failing, but trying to get people to slow down and finish their readiness process
So
before they dive into the, on the court hunt. And that also includes determining what it is you're really looking for, which is not the same as when you were in your 20s and 30s. It's just not the same. You cannot go by your teen idol when you were in the 80s, and you can't go on what had you choose your partner that you were married to. So that is what the webinar is for, by the way. That's what the 3 secrets to find that I offer for free is. It's literally taking you through, let's define what you really want now, because it's changed. And I would never throw you on a dating site or even at a singles event or even talking to your friends about who they might set you up with. I would never do that until you're crystal clear on why it's okay that your marriage ended and what it is you're really looking for now that is different, understanding your patterns and understanding how to break them, how and why to break them. So that's my real answer to like what to do first, right? Those things to do first. I can talk about the other 2 stages, but it's really premature.
No, I love that, because I think people find their value in these situations. I wasn't good enough. Oh, if I just get somebody else, then I must be good enough, right? But that is a recipe for disaster.
Rookie mistake. Rookie mistake most of us make our whole lives, right? Is having someone else compensate for our sense of self.
Right. And that might be the answer, but I was wondering, again, you'll give your thoughts, but what's the biggest mistake or some of the bigger mistakes that you see people make when they, I'm going to say, jump back in? It's not even dipping their toes sometimes into the dating pool.
I mean, it's the time wasting, right? It really. So I said one of the mistakes was jumping back in before you're ready, but I'll piggyback on that and say staying too long in something that's not a match, right? I say your person needs to be a head, heart, and hoo-ha match, right? And we just constantly let one of those voices bully the other ones into silence. Like we don't even believe we can have a head, heart, and hoo-ha match. So we just take 1 or 2 and hope for the best. Meanwhile, that is what you did in your marriage. You took 1 or 2 and hoped the other one would fall into place, and it probably never did. Or maybe for a minute you had all 3, but then 1 disappeared. So, or 2, right? So we really stay too long in things that don't work because we're lonely and we want that companionship and we think it's going to help our self-worth. It's the tail wagging the dog, right? That you really do need to do the readiness portion, which is understanding your patterns, knowing what you really desire, and working on your own self-esteem, which has to do with how you eat and drink, how you exercise, how you talk to your children, how you conduct your money, everything that life consists of. If you are not in integrity, I'll call it, or being true to yourself or honoring your ideals, you're not going to go into dating confidently. You're going to think you need a compensation, not a true partner.
I think that's spot on. The only other thing I would maybe add a little bit is, sometimes people want to jump in because, as I said, they feel more valued having a partner. You have to remember that you got to bring something to the table as well. It's not just that you got to get something from your partner, but you've got to be able to, so to speak, give value to them as well. And if you're the wrong people and you don't mesh properly, as you said, you're probably not the right person for them, and they're not the right person for you. And that in itself, as you say, as you drag that on, becomes harder maybe to detach or whatever it might be.
Exactly. We don't like giving up an investment, right? Like, about investments, right? If the stock goes down, we're like, well, I want to stay until it goes back up, right?
Right.
Mistake.
So I think, trust is so often destroyed. It's shattered, through a divorce. Sometimes it's not just in relationships. We don't trust ourselves. It's common to doubt yourself, probably more than ever when you go through a divorce. Right. How do you help people rebuild that trust and become confident in themselves again and make confident decisions?
It's such an obnoxious answer, and I've already alluded to it. But you have to learn to make and keep promises to yourself, right? It's perfect timing because we're coming up to New Year's resolutions. And one of my big plugs is don't make a resolution, make a promise. a detailed, specific action plan.
Mm.
I will work on my profile and I will have it done by January 30th, or I will not drink coffee until I do. I will exercise 3 times a week for 30 minutes, or else I will not have wine next week. I will only have 2 desserts at Christmas dinner, or else I will walk the dog after dinner or, clean my mother's closet, whatever. Like you need to design and it's so simple, but people make it so hard. The way that I build self-confidence is by making and keeping promises to myself. Your parents did not do the job. Your lovers are not going to do the job. Your kids are not going to do the job. It is an inside job to build self-love and self-worth, and it is built every time you make and keep a promise to yourself. Now, we do it subconsciously. If you're good at your career, you've made and kept promises to yourself. If you're good at your fitness, you've made and kept promises to yourself. Wherever you're good in life, that's what you've been doing unconsciously. We now need to bring that ability to the areas we ignore and then hold against ourselves.
I like that in so many ways, because one of the big things I see in that anyway is that when you make that promise, you're also deciding on what your priorities and your values are. And you may not have done that throughout your whole marriage because you've been a partnership, you've been a parent, you've been whatever else it. You've always given that over to everybody else. And now all of a sudden you are focusing on yourself, on your values, your priorities. And
Right.
if you can live a values-based life, I think you've got a very fulfilling life, even if it's not with 1 million friends, but it's 5 or 6 really good friends, right? Those are the kind of things that I think become so important and really make your life so much more fulfilling. And we do have to wrap up. So before we go, there's one recommendation for everybody listening. I do want you to go to Laurie's website, watch Laurie's podcast on YouTube, Love at Any Age, and do her free webinar. You can get the webinar at lauriegerber.com/webinar. I think I got that right.
You got it.
Okay, great. And Laurie, once again, how can people get in touch with you and interact with you, see all the information, get to know you a
have
little bit?
said it all, my friend. The podcast is really the best way to get to know me, but I have tons of stuff on the website, and then the webinar is a great little class, and I do private coaching and group coaching. So that's my story.
I encourage everybody to go to lauriegerber.com. I think not just to go there, but do something there. Read her blogs, reach out to her, do something. It's one thing to hit a website. It's another thing to get the value from it. So please do take a little action beyond that. And Laurie, thank you. A daunting experience getting back into the dating game. I think you've given some ready to go tips. And I think sometimes people aren't always thinking about so much of what you brought up. So thank you for that. I do appreciate it. And I am Hirsch Serman, the host of the Financial Wellness Hour. Please reach out to me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. You can reach out for questions for me, for Laurie. I do want to thank CC Schatz, as always, for the magic behind the scenes. Makes it just easy to have a conversation with my guests. I look forward to everybody joining me for my next show, and have an amazing holiday season. And it doesn't have to be alone. Enjoy. Thank you.